Jake Morrison walked into the big round room where all the alien leaders sat and talked. The room was huge and made of shiny metal that reflected lights from 100 different worlds. He had been coming to this place for 15 years now. Every time he came here, the same thing happened. The aliens would listen to what humans wanted to say, then they would laugh or make jokes about how stupid humans were. Today felt different, though. Jake could feel anger building up inside his chest like a fire that would not go out. He looked around at all the strange faces staring at him. There were the Zelkari with their crystal-like skin that sparkled under the bright lights. Next to them sat the Thraxians, who looked like giant insects with too many arms and eyes that never blinked. Behind them were dozens of other alien races that Jake had learned to recognize over the years. Dr. Lisa Hayes sat next to Jake at the human table. She was holding a small computer that showed all the numbers and facts they had worked on for months. The numbers told a scary story. Pirates were attacking human colonies more and more each day. In the last year alone, over 400 attacks had happened. Human families were dying while waiting for help that never came. Captain Sam Rodriguez was also there. He had just come back from a terrible battle at a place called Kepler 442. Sam looked tired and sad. His eyes kept staring at nothing, like he was seeing things that were not really there. Jake knew why. 30,000 human men, women, and children had died there. They had called for help from the Council military. The help never came. Sam and his small group of ships had fought alone against hundreds of pirate ships. Most of the people still died. High Chancellor Vex Thule stood up to speak. He was the leader of the Zelkari Empire, and always acted like he was better than everyone else. His crystal face showed no feeling at all as he looked at the human group. The humans want to build defense stations in the Outer Rim, Vex Thule said, in his cold voice. This idea is cute, like a child asking to play with grown-up toys. But we all know that humans do not have the skills to build such things. They are still too young as a species to understand real technology. Other aliens in the room made sounds that Jake knew meant they were agreeing and laughing. The sound made his anger grow even hotter. Lisa's hand tightened around her computer. Her face was red with anger, too. These defense stations could save lives, Lisa said, standing up. Our data shows that pirate attacks happen most often in areas where there are no military bases. If we build stations there, we can stop attacks before they happen. A Thraxian leader named Kekstar made a clicking noise that meant he was laughing. Humans and their data. They think numbers on a screen can solve everything. Real military work requires experience that takes thousands of years to learn. Humans have been in space for less than 200 years. Jake felt something break inside his mind. 200 years in space. And what did they have to show for it? Dead colonies. Dead families. Dead children who would never grow up because the Great Galactic Council was too proud to let humans help protect themselves. Sam leaned over and whispered to Jake, "Sir, how much longer are we going to let them treat us like this? My crew died out there. Good people. They died because these aliens think we are too stupid to help ourselves." Jake looked around the room again. He saw the same faces he had been seeing for 15 years. The same smug looks. The same attitude that humans were just pets who should be happy to even be allowed in this room. He thought about all the human colonies on the edge of space. Families trying to build new homes while pirates attacked them over and over. He thought about the children who went to sleep scared every night. Furthermore, Vex Thule continued, the cost of such a project would be enormous. Humans lack the economic resources to fund proper defensive installations. Perhaps they should focus on smaller goals, like improving their farming techniques. That was it. Jake stood up so fast that his chair fell backward and hit the floor. With a loud crash, the sound echoed through the huge room and everyone became quiet. All the alien eyes turned to look at him. The United Earth government hereby formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately, Jake said in a clear, strong voice. The room became so quiet that Jake could hear his own heart beating. Even the translation machines seemed to stop working for a moment. Vex Thule's crystal face showed surprise for the first time that Jake had ever seen. "I beg your pardon?" Vex Thule said. "You heard me correctly," Jake replied. "We quit. We are leaving this council. We will no longer ask for your permission to protect our own people. We will no longer beg for help that never comes. We will no longer sit here and listen to you call us stupid children. Lisa stood up next to him. Then Sam stood up too. Other humans around the room began standing up as well. The alien leaders just stared at them like they could not believe what was happening. You cannot simply leave, said another alien leader. There are treaties, there are trade agreements, there are rules. Jake looked at the alien and smiled for the first time in months. Watch us. He turned around and walked toward the door. Lisa and Sam followed him. As they walked, other humans in the room got up and followed too. Their footsteps echoed in the big quiet room. Behind them, Jake could hear the aliens starting to talk all at once. Their voices got louder and more worried as they realized what was happening. Some were angry. Some sounded scared. Jake did not care anymore. As they reached the door, Jake turned around one last time. He looked at Vexthal and all the other alien leaders who had spent 15 years treating humans like they were nothing. Good luck protecting your trade routes, Jake said. Good luck maintaining your technology. Good luck keeping your colonies safe from pirates. You just lost the one species that actually cared about helping others instead of just helping themselves. Then he walked out the door and never looked back. The message went out to every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy within 6 hours of Jake Morrison walking out of the council chambers. It was short and simple. Pack up everything. We are going home. Leave nothing behind. Colonel. Betty Walsh stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, the largest human outpost in council space. Around her, hundreds of people worked at computers and communication systems. The station was like a small city floating in space, home to 50,000 humans and their families. How long do we have? Asked Major Pete Collins, Betty's second in command. Betty looked at the schedule on her computer screen. 72 hours. Every civilian transport in the sector is coming here to pick up people and supplies. Military ships will guard them while they travel. What about our stuff? Our homes? People have lived here for 20 years. Pack what you can carry. Everything else stays behind, Betty said. She felt sad saying it, but those were the orders from Earth. This is not a normal move. This is an escape. Pete looked confused. Escape from what? Betty pointed to another screen that showed news from around the galaxy. Look at how the aliens are reacting to our announcement. Half of them are angry. The other half think we are bluffing. None of them believe we will really leave. When they figure out we are serious, some of them might try to stop us by force. On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Rick Stone was loading the last human cargo ship at Proxima Trade Hub. The ship was so full of supplies and equipment that people had to squeeze through narrow paths between boxes and machines. Rick had spent 12 years working at this trade station. He knew every hallway and every room. He had friends here among the alien workers. But now he was leaving it, all behind, and he was not coming back. Commander Stone, said the Thraxian station master over the communication system, you cannot remove all this equipment. These machines belong to the trade consortium. There are contracts. Rick smiled as he sealed the last cargo door. Check your contracts again. All this equipment was bought and paid for by human companies. We are just taking our own property. But the station will not function without this equipment. You are destroying 20 years of joint cooperation. Should have thought about that before you spent 20 years treating us like servants, Rick said into his microphone. He climbed into his ship and started the engines. Proxima Control, this is Human Freighter 7 requesting departure clearance. Departure. Clearance denied, came the angry reply. You will return that equipment immediately. Rick pushed the engine controls forward and his ship began moving away from the station. Sorry, cannot hear you clearly. Must be communication problems. He switched off his radio and flew away into the darkness of space. Behind him, the trade station's lights were already starting to flicker as critical systems began shutting down. Dr. Linda Cooper was having her own problems at the research facility on Tau Ceti Prime. She stood in front of a massive computer that held 50 years of scientific research and discoveries. Most of it had been done by human scientists working together with aliens from other species. You cannot delete this data, said Dr. Yelthari, a Centauri scientist who had worked with Linda for 8 years. This research belongs to all species. It could help save lives across the galaxy. Linda's fingers paused over the computer controls. She liked Yelthari. They had been good friends and had discovered many important things together. But she had her orders. This research was done mostly by human scientists using human methods, Linda said sadly. The council never gave us credit for our work. They always said it was a group effort. Now they can see how much of it was really a group effort. Please. Linda, think about all the people who could benefit from this research. Think about the children who might be saved by the medical discoveries we made together. Linda did think about it. She thought about all the human children who had died because the council refused to share advanced medical technology with human colonies. She thought about all the times human scientists had been ignored or dismissed when they tried to contribute to important projects. I am thinking about children, Linda said. I am thinking about human children who died because your people thought our medicine was too primitive to be worth considering. She pressed the delete button. 50 years of research disappeared in seconds. Captain Eddie Brooks was pulling human military ships out of joint patrol duties all across the galaxy. His job was to coordinate the withdrawal of 300 human warships that had been working with alien forces to keep space routes safe. Captain Brooks, this is Admiral Zexthol of the 4th Fleet, came an angry voice over the radio. Your ships cannot leave their patrol routes. There are pirates in this sector. Eddie looked at his navigation screen. His squadron of 12 ships was responsible for protecting a trade route that carried supplies to 15 different worlds. If they left, pirates would definitely attack the cargo ships. Admiral, with respect, your people made it very clear that human military skills are not needed. I am sure your superior alien technology can handle a few pirates. Captain, be reasonable. People will die if you abandon your posts. Eddie thought about the 30,000 people who died at Kepler 442 while waiting for council ships to help them. People die when we stay too. At least this way they will not be our people. He switched his radio to the human military frequency. All human ships, this is Captain Brooks. Form up and prepare for jump to rally point 7. We are going home. 12 human warships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving empty space where they used to patrol. All across the galaxy, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Human engineers walked away from power plants and factories, taking their knowledge with them. Human doctors closed their clinics and hospitals. Human teachers stopped teaching alien children. Human farmers abandoned their food production facilities. The aliens had always thought humans needed them more than they needed humans. They thought humans were dependent on alien technology and alien protection. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Ray Phillips had designed the quantum communication system that let different parts of the galaxy talk to each other instantly. As his transport ship carried him away from the main communication hub, he used his administrative access to change all the security codes and passwords. Let them figure it out themselves, he muttered, as he watched the hub disappear behind them. Within 48 hours, every human in council space was gone. They had vanished like they had never been there at all. They left behind empty buildings and silent machines. Most importantly, they left behind a galaxy that was about to discover just how much they had relied on the species they had treated like children. 3 weeks after the humans left, Trade Minister Kelthara of the Centauri Commerce Guild sat in her office, staring at numbers that made no sense. She had been looking at the same report for 2 hours, hoping the numbers would change. They did not change. This cannot be right, she said to her assistant, a young Altarian named Bextar. Run the calculations one more time. Bextar looked nervous. He had already run the numbers 6 times. Each time the result was the same. Minister, the numbers are correct. Human cargo ships were handling 34% of all trade between star systems. Without them, we have massive delays everywhere. Kelthara rubbed her forehead with one of her 4 hands. Before the humans left, cargo moved smoothly from one system to another. Ships arrived on time. Goods were delivered when promised. Now everything was falling apart. What about using other species' ships? She asked. We tried, Most alien species only have enough ships for their own trade. The few that have extra ships are charging 5 times the normal price because they know we are desperate. On her desk, communication devices kept beeping with angry messages from business leaders across the galaxy. Food shipments were stuck at loading docks because there were no ships to carry them. Medical supplies sat in warehouses while hospitals ran out of medicine. Raw materials for factories were delayed by weeks or months. But the cargo ships were just the beginning of the problems. On the industrial world of Kepler 186, factory supervisor Yal Moon stood in the middle of his production facility watching. Machines that used to work perfectly now sit silent and broken. The factory made computer components that were used in ships and space stations throughout the galaxy. "What is wrong with Assembly Line 7? He asked his chief engineer. The engineer, a Thraxian named Klexstar, looked embarrassed. "The automated systems are not responding to our commands. The control software was designed by human engineers. When they left, they took all the maintenance protocols with them." Yalmoon walked over to one of the huge machines. It was supposed to be building tiny computer chips, but instead it just sat there making a low humming sound. "Can we not figure out how to fix it ourselves?" "Sir, this technology is incredibly complex. The humans spent 15 years perfecting these systems. Our own engineers estimate it would take us at least 5 years to understand how everything works, assuming we can figure it out at all." The same scene was happening in hundreds of factories across Council space. Machines that had worked perfectly for years were now breaking down. Without human engineers to maintain them, production was grinding to a halt. Supreme Admiral Kextar was dealing with an even bigger problem. He stood in the command center of the Council Defense Fleet's main headquarters, looking at tactical displays that showed pirate activity throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, we have reports of 17 new pirate attacks in the last week," reported his intelligence chief, Commander Velthrani. "This is 3 times more than usual." "Why are our forces not stopping these attacks?" Kextar demanded. Velthrani looked uncomfortable. "Sir, our tactical prediction systems are not working properly. It appears that human analysts were responsible for most of our strategic planning algorithms. Without their input, we cannot predict where pirates will strike next." Kextar felt a cold fear in his stomach. For decades, the Council military had successfully protected trade routes and colonies by predicting where attacks would happen and positioning ships to stop them. The system had worked so well that pirate attacks had become rare. "What about our intelligence networks? Surely we can still track pirate movements." "That is another problem, sir. Many of our best intelligence agents were humans. They had contacts and sources throughout the criminal underworld. When they left, we lost most of our ability to gather information about pirate plans." On the edge of Council space, pirate Captain Scar Thul was reading the same reports that were terrifying the Council military. Unlike the Council, Scar Thul was very happy with what he was seeing. "The humans are gone," he told his crew of cutthroats and criminals. "The Council military is blind and confused. This is our chance to take whatever we want." Scar Thul had been a small-time pirate for 20 years. He had never been able to pull off any major raids because the Council ships always seemed to know where he was going to attack. His fleet was small and weak compared to the military, but now everything had changed. In the last 3 weeks, his raids had been completely successful. Council ships arrived hours or days too late to stop him. It was like the military had become stupid overnight. "Send messages to all the pirate fleets in this sector," Scarthul ordered. "Tell them it is time to work together. The galaxy is ours for the taking." Dr. Ray Phillips had been right about the communication problems. All across the galaxy, the quantum communication relays that connected different star systems were beginning to fail. The technology was incredibly advanced, but it needed constant maintenance and updates. On the communication hub at Vega Station, Chief Technician Morthak stared at equipment that was becoming more unreliable each day. Messages that used to transmit instantly now took hours to get through. Sometimes they did not get through at all. "Can we not call the humans back to fix this?" asked one of his assistants. Morthak made a bitter laughing sound. "Call them with what? The communication system is broken. Besides, do you think they would help us after the way we treated them?" The problems were spreading like a disease throughout the galaxy. Food production was down because human agricultural techniques were no longer available. Medical research had stopped because human scientists were gone. Even simple things like maintenance of space stations was becoming difficult. High Chancellor Vexthul sat in his private office reading report after report of systems failing throughout the Zelkari Empire. His crystal face, usually so confident and proud, now showed worry and fear. How did this happen? He asked his chief advisor, Nexthul. The humans were supposed to be the primitive ones. They were supposed to need us. Nexthul had been studying human contributions to galactic civilization for the past 3 weeks. What he had found was shocking. Chancellor, it appears we were wrong about the humans. They were not dependent on us. We were dependent on them. That is impossible. They are barely 2 centuries out of their caves. Sir, human engineers designed 60% of our automated systems. Human doctors developed 40% of our medical treatments. Human scientists contributed to 70% of our research projects. Human military analysts provided most of our strategic intelligence. Human cargo ships handled more trade than any other species. Vexthul felt something he had never felt before in his long life. Genuine fear. But they always asked for our permission. They always seemed grateful for our guidance. They were being polite, sir. They asked for permission because that was the law. But they were the ones doing most of the actual work. As the weeks passed, the problems got worse instead of better. Systems that had worked for decades were breaking down. The galaxy that had seemed so stable and organized was falling apart, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars the humans were watching and waiting to see what would happen next. 6 months after the humans disappeared, High Chancellor Vexthul stood in his command center watching his empire fall apart. The big display screens around him showed red warning lights from dozens of star systems. Each red light meant another. World was in trouble. Sir, the Rigel sector has declared independence, reported his military commander, General Textar. That makes 23 systems that have broken away from our empire in the last month. Vexthul's crystal hands shook as he pointed at the display. Send the 5th Fleet to bring them back under control. Sir, the 5th Fleet is stuck at the Deneb shipyards. Their ships cannot launch because the automated launch systems are not working. We do not have enough technicians who understand how to operate them manually. This was the problem everywhere. The Zelkari Empire had grown huge and powerful over thousands of years, but it had relied on others to build and maintain its technology. Now that the humans were gone, nothing worked properly anymore. On the outer edge of Zelkari space, Governor Lexthul of the Altair colony was reading the same reports that were terrifying his leaders. Unlike his superiors, he had worked closely with human engineers for years. He knew exactly what was happening. The empire is finished, he told his staff. Without human support, they cannot maintain control over their territory. This is our chance to be free. But Governor, what if they send warships to force us back under their control? Lexthul laughed, but it was not a happy sound. With what? Ships? Half their fleet cannot leave port because the launch systems do not work. The other half cannot navigate properly because their computers are failing. He was right. Across the galaxy, the great empires that had ruled for centuries were crumbling like old buildings. The Thraxian Alliance was having even worse problems than the Zelkari Empire. Captain Eddie Brooks floated in space aboard the human cruiser USS Independence, reading intercepted Thraxian communications. What he saw made him shake his head in amazement. Listen to this, he told his communications officer, Lieutenant Nancy Hill. The Thraxians are offering any terms, any amount of money, any trade deals, just to get human engineers back. Nancy looked at the message on her screen. They are really desperate. 6 months ago, they would not even let humans bid on construction contracts. Now they cannot build anything without us, Eddie said. Their entire economy was built on using human labor and human ideas while paying us almost nothing for it. The Thraxian homeworld was in chaos. Their government had been built around the idea that they were superior to all other species, especially humans. Now that humans were gone, their people were starting to ask difficult questions. Thraxian citizen, Cockstar stood in a long line waiting to buy food at a government distribution center. The line moved very slowly because the automated checkout systems were broken. Everything had to be done by hand now. which took much longer. "Why is everything so difficult now?" asked the person behind him in line. "Because the humans are gone," Cockstar replied. "They were the ones who made everything work smoothly. Our government just took credit for it." Similar conversations were happening all across Thraxian space. People were realizing that their great civilization had been built on the backs of the species they had looked down on. But the worst problems were happening in the outer rim of the galaxy, where pirates were running wild. Pirate Captain Scarthul now commanded a fleet of over 200 ships. What had started as small raids had grown into a full invasion of civilized space. "The Council military is useless," he told his assembled captains. "They cannot predict our attacks. They cannot coordinate their defenses. They cannot even communicate properly between their ships. This galaxy belongs to us now." Scarthul was right. The Council defense fleet was losing battle after battle. Admiral Kekstar had been forced to retreat from system after system as his forces were overwhelmed by pirates who seemed to know exactly when and where to attack. "Sir, we have lost contact with the 7th Fleet," reported Commander Velthrani. "Their last message said they were under attack by over 50 pirate ships near the Procyon system." Kekstar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 6 months ago, 50 pirate ships would have been easily defeated by a single Council squadron. Now they were destroying entire fleets. "How many ships do we have left that are fully operational?" "Less than 30% of our total fleet, sir. Most of our ships have some kind of technical problem that we cannot fix without human technicians." The pirate raids were not just military defeats. They were destroying the economy and infrastructure that kept galactic civilization running. Trade ships were afraid to travel without military protection. Colonies were being abandoned as people fled to safer areas. Dr. Kate Morrison sat in the command center of Haven Station, humanity's new mobile capital ship, reading reports from across the galaxy. She was Jake Morrison's sister, and like him, she had spent years trying to work with the Council before giving up. "The entire Rigel sector has collapsed," she told the Emergency Human Council. "Over 1 billion refugees are fleeing from pirate attacks. The local governments are begging anyone who will listen for help." Jake Morrison looked at the reports with a mixture of sadness and anger. "They created this mess by treating us like children. Now real children are dying because of their pride." "What should we do?" asked Dr. Danny Foster, the human psychologist who had studied alien cultures for decades. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about all the years of insults and dismissal that humans had endured. He thought about the people who had died at Kepler 442 because the Council would not help them. He also thought about the innocent refugees who were suffering now. "We help the refugees," he finally said. "But we do not go back to serving the Council. We save who we can and let the empires fall." Human rescue ships began appearing throughout the galaxy, picking up refugees and taking them to safety. But they did not coordinate with Council forces or ask for permission. They just saved people and left. The aliens were confused by this behavior. Why would humans help people from the same empires that had mistreated them? The answer was simple. Humans helped people because it was the right thing to do, not because they expected something in return. Chancellor Vexthul watched human rescue ships evacuate civilians from a failed Zelkari colony. The humans could have let those people die as revenge for years of poor treatment. Instead, they risked their own lives to save them. "I do not understand," he said to his advisor. "Why do they help people who were cruel to them?" His advisor had been studying human behavior for months, trying to understand what made them different from other species. "Sir, I think this is why we needed them so much. They do not just think about profit or power or revenge. They actually care about other living beings." As reports came in from across the galaxy, a clear pattern emerged. Everywhere humans had been involved, systems were failing. Everywhere humans had been excluded, things had kept working. The galaxy was learning too late that humans had not been junior partners or servants. They had been the foundation that held everything together, and now that foundation was gone. 1 year after the Great Exodus, Jake Morrison sat in his office aboard the massive human ship New Horizon, reading intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The reports painted a picture of complete collapse. 3 major empires had fallen, completely. Dozens of smaller governments had been overthrown. Pirate fleets controlled nearly half of all trade routes. Billions of refugees wandered from system to system looking for safety. His communication officer, Lieutenant Steve Parker, knocked on his door. "Sir, you have an incoming message. Priority 1. It is from High Chancellor Vexthul of the Zelkari." Jake felt surprised. He had not spoken to any council leaders since he walked out of their chambers a year ago. "Put him through." The holographic display activated and Vexthul's crystal face appeared. Jake was shocked by what he saw. The proud alien leader who had once dismissed humans as primitive children now looked broken and desperate. His crystal skin had lost its shine and his eyes showed fear and exhaustion. "Ambassador Morrison," Vexthul said, his voice much quieter than Jake remembered. "I come before you not as a superior, but as an equal seeking aid. The Council recognizes that grave errors were made in our relationship with humanity." Jake leaned back in his chair and studied the alien's face. Around him, the command center of New Horizon buzzed with activity as his people coordinated rescue missions and humanitarian aid across the galaxy. "I am listening," Jake said simply. Vexthul took a deep breath before continuing. "The galaxy is in chaos, Ambassador. Without human expertise, our systems are failing faster than we can repair them. Without human innovation, our technology grows, more obsolete each day. Without human compassion—" He paused, and Jake could see that the words were difficult for him to say. "Without human compassion, we have become the very monsters we once claimed to protect the galaxy from." Captain Susan Walker, Jake's security chief, stood behind his chair and whispered, "It could be a trap, sir." But Dr. Danny Foster, who had studied alien psychology for decades, shook his head. "Look at his body language, his vocal patterns, the way he is avoiding eye contact. This is genuine desperation, not deception." Jake had been expecting this moment for months. His intelligence network had been monitoring the collapse of galactic civilization. He knew that eventually, someone would have to ask for human help. He just had not expected it to be Vexthul himself. "What exactly are you asking for?" Jake said. "We need you to come back," Vexthul replied. "The galaxy needs human engineers to fix our technology. We need human doctors to treat the millions of refugees. We need human military advisors to coordinate defenses against the pirate fleets. We need human administrators to help rebuild the governments that have collapsed." Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about all the years of humiliation and dismissal that humans had endured. He thought about the people who had died because the Council refused to provide aid. He thought about Captain Sam Rodriguez and the 30,000 civilians who died at Kepler 442. "And what do humans get in return?" Jake asked. "Anything you want," Vexthul said immediately. "Full representation in the Council with equal voting rights, sovereign control over all human territories and colonies, fair trade agreements, equal status in all joint projects, whatever terms you require." Jake looked around his command center. His people were listening to every word of the conversation. Many of them had family members who died because of Council negligence. Many had spent years being treated as second-class citizens. What would they think about going back? "I need to discuss this with my people," Jake said. "Give me 24 hours to consider your proposal." After the communication ended, Jake called an emergency meeting of all human leadership. Representatives from every human ship, station, and colony participated through holographic displays. The debate went on for hours. "They do not deserve our help," said Admiral John Carter, who had commanded human military forces for 15 years. "They treated us like slaves and fools. Now they want us to save them from their own stupidity." "But innocent people are dying," replied Dr. Linda Cooper, who had been leading refugee rescue operations. "Children who never hurt anyone are starving because their governments have collapsed. Can we really let them suffer for the crimes of their leaders?" Captain Eddie Brooks spoke up from his position with the rescue fleet. "I have been in the outer systems for months. I have seen what is happening out there. Entire civilizations are falling apart. If we do not help, billions will die. And if we do help, They will just go back to treating us badly once the crisis is over, Admiral Carter replied. Jake listened to the debate for hours, but he already knew what his answer would be. The question was not whether humans should help. The question was how to help while making sure they were never taken advantage of again. We go back, he finally announced. But we go back as equals, not as servants. We help rebuild the galaxy, but this time we do it as partners who have an equal say in how things are run. The next day, Jake contacted Vexthul with his answer. The United Earth government is willing to return and provide assistance, but there will be conditions. Full council membership with equal voting rights, sovereign control over all human space, equal representation in all joint projects, and most importantly, humans will never again be excluded from decisions that affect galactic civilization. Agreed, Vexthul said immediately. All of your conditions are accepted without question. Within a week, human ships began appearing in council space again. But this time they came as rescuers and rebuilders, not as supplicants begging for acceptance. Human engineers worked around the clock to repair critical systems. Human doctors treated millions of sick and injured refugees. Human military advisors helped coordinate defenses against pirate attacks. Captain Nancy Hill commanded a squadron of human warships that finally cornered pirate leader Scarthul in the Arcturus system. The pirate captain had grown arrogant during his year of easy victories, but he was about to learn why human military tactics had been so valuable to the Council. "This is Captain Hill of the human fleet," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Pirate vessels, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and you will be treated according to the laws of war." Scarthul laughed over the radio. "Humans, I have been defeating Council forces for a year. What makes you think you can stop me?" "Because we are not the Council," Nancy replied. "We are the people who taught them how to fight." The battle was over in 30 minutes. Human ships moved with coordination and precision that the pirates had never seen before. Scarthul's fleet was destroyed or captured almost without effort. All across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human expertise began fixing the problems that had caused the Great Collapse. Trade routes reopened. Governments were rebuilt. Refugee camps became new colonies. But this time everything was different. When human engineers designed new systems, they were credited as the designers. When human doctors developed new treatments, they were recognized as the inventors. When human military advisors created successful strategies, they were acknowledged as the architects of victory. Dr. Kate Morrison stood in the rebuilt council chambers 6 months later, watching Jake give his first speech as humanity's equal representative. The chamber looked the same as before, but everything had changed. Humans no longer sat at a small table in the back. They sat at the main council table as full partners. "The galaxy learned something important this past year," Jake said to the assembled alien leaders. "No species is superior to any other. No, people are more important than any other. We all have different strengths and different weaknesses. When we work together as equals, we can build something greater than any of us could create alone." Vexthul, who had been elected as the new council president, nodded his agreement. "Ambassador Morrison speaks the truth. The galaxy's greatest mistake was believing that some species were meant to lead and others were meant to follow. Today we begin a new era of true cooperation and mutual respect." As Jake looked around the chamber, he saw faces that were no longer dismissive or condescending. He saw respect, gratitude, and something that had never been there before: genuine friendship. The galaxy had been broken and rebuilt. In the process, it had become something better than it was before. And at the heart of it all were the humans, who had walked away when they were not valued, and then returned to help when they were truly needed. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun.